So tell us, if you could get your time machine and go back in history and pick any, let's say, thinker. It doesn't even have to be a scientist. Any thinker you could, bring them back, have a beer or a glass of wine or a cocktail or whatever it is with them, and maybe even do it after giving them a few weeks to bone up on what we've learned since, they left science. Who would that be?
Oh my gosh, and that's a warm-up question? That's so
That's a warm-up question. I know, we'll record that. That'll be the first 30 minutes, right?
boy, you know, I'm gonna flip that around if I can. I remember once, I don't know if this will be part of the podcast or not, but we were talking about what questions we might ask a job applicant for an evolutionary biology job, and the question that came to me was like, oh no, what question you would ask God, given the opportunity, if there was a God, what would you ask? And I want a fully resolved tree of life, just completely resolved down to the finest detail, just mapped out, so I can stare at it and walk up all those branches. And so when I think about who historically might be a good person to fit that, I mean, Darwin, and sort of like, I love some of his quotes of, the history of life being more coral-like than tree-like. And because it's all there, it's a real history, but it's in shells and deposits, and not an actively growing tree at a time scale that we can actually see. So I would love to sit and talk with Darwin, as simple as that sounds, about what was wrapping through his head as he started to envision evolution in a tree-like form, and contrasting that with corals and trees as the appropriate metaphor.
What was his perspective on spiders?
That's a great question. He didn't write much about spiders, and I don't know enough about what he wrote about spiders, but
Okay.
they did come up here and there, but not enough, not nearly enough.
Not enough. Of course,
He should have had a monograph on his own.
Forget those earthworms and finches. It's all spiders.
No, but I'm
Absolutely.
imagining right now, like sitting with him and showing him the Tree of Life website and sort of cruising around different parts of that. How amazing would that be, right?
Exactly. Yeah. So, and to have a time machine, I'd want to go back to some of those major branching points. We keep searching and searching for estimates for the age of the most recent common ancestor of all spiders, and it's pretty clear it's right around the early Devonian, so 400 million years ago, when life was very first crawling onto land, right? Which just makes good sense. And so I would love to go to a time machine and sit on one of those paleo shores and see the first animal life making its way up onto land, from those humble beginnings. So
There you go.
yeah,
Very Darwin-esque.
yeah.
So tell us about one of your non-scientific skills or hobbies.
Oh boy. Non-scientific skills or hobbies. I've been learning to play the guitar and singing. Like I love music.
At the same time?
Yeah, actually, one of the
Good.
one of the COVID
Multitask.
advances is playing and singing by myself.
Musical multitasking. Huh?
Exactly. Yeah. So I'm not sure if I would call it a talent by any means, but it's certainly an outlet of joy for me. Yeah, and I also used to be a gymnast, and I still can stand on my hands and walk around sometimes, which gets scarier and scarier the older I get, because something's bound to break.